one of the nutrients we're going to talk about this week is boron. Boron, is important to several functions in the plant. It fits in that micronutrient category, and when we start talking about these micronutrients like we will for the next couple weeks, it's important to know that you need to understand what your yield levels are. Some of the yield levels that we've been shooting for in the past, some of these micronutrients may be supplied completely by the soil through microbial activity, mineralization. We're not talking about removing a lot of these micronutrients out of the soil, but they are important in plant production. So as we move to higher yield plateaus or yield goals, that's where they start kicking in, and we need to start watching management. But boron's important for a reason. It's very important for sugar transport up and down that plant, both corn and soybeans. So when we look at boron, we understand it serves a very important role. It's one of the 16 key nutrients that is very important in plant production, and especially corn and soybeans, where we're producing a lot of sugars, a lot of starches in these plants. We've long known that boron can play a vital role in pollen viability, help that silk structure. That's why we've seen in corn production, a lot of boron applications made right around that tassel time. One of the things I notice in some of the genetics, some of the hybrids out there today, you can walk in some fields and there's a lot of pollen shed. There's popular genetics out there that maybe don't shed as much pollen, and that's fine. There's still plenty out there, but we're looking at maybe helping ourselves a little bit there and seeing some benefits. The challenge of boron is just the fact that it's immobile in the plant. We've talked about this for years. Boron's immobile in the plant, but it can be mobile in the soil, which sometimes doesn't make sense, but that's the way it works. And so when we look at the fact that it's kind of immobile in the plant, that's where we see more of a fit for the foliar application. So when we make a foliar application, that usually gets by for a couple weeks, but we may see multiple applications of boron based on the fact that it's just not mobile in the plant, and depending on when we're trying to influence that plant, maybe when we match up some of these applications. So when we look at soil, I caution everybody on building those levels. Again, just because it's a mobile nutrient, big rainfall, if you're on sandier soils where we don't have the holding capacity, I just caution. Typically we do like the dry forms because it's cheaper to get it applied, cheaper to get it in the build soil levels. But this is one you need to take with a grain of salt before we get too carried away. Just understand what you're doing, not against the dry forms, but just be cautious and know your soil types. I talked about that removal. With corn, we're looking at 3/4 of a pound on 250 bushel corn. We're looking at about a 1/2 pound on 75 bushel beans. And that's for the grain and stover production. We return about half of that if we don't remove the stover off the field. So when you look at the amount taken off the field, it's very minimal. But again, the higher the yields, it gets a little harder for that soil to reproduce that for us and generate that through mineralization. So that's a little bit about boron. Look forward to keeping these coming to you.